the thing that I want to call out over and over and over again is that in earlier sessions, we explained that that there were common relational algebra operations, one of them being the restriction operator. It has this sigma. I pulled that out, so for your assessment, you might get a question where I say, what is this? What does it represent? That's lowercase sigma. That's the restriction relational algebra operator. It works like a filter. So if you're in Access and you type in something that says equals male under the gender field, you're actually applying a restriction operator. So understanding the theory of these operations and how they actually work in the real world is kind of the challenge. And unfortunately, your book focuses very largely in character-based SQL. And I want you to be familiar with that. One of the things that I put into the addendum, so the addendum is where you're going to find most of the meat about the relational operators. So the focus of the addendum is, once again, the into the weeds kind of stuff about the different operators. We told you that when you're doing higher level data mining, the union, intersection, and difference operators, those are very useful, right? And they help you identify common data elements or different data elements between those tables, and those are very helpful. But the most common one of all is the theta join, which is actually a combination of a natural join and a Cartesian product. And then there's one other way to implement the theta join. And a theta join is basically what they call an equi-join. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time here to find the last little part of this. Yeah, I did reorganize the layout of some of this because I didn't want you to be reading about one thing and then you get to the next picture and you get confused. So the last revision of this is supposed to help. In Access, when you're checking the box for referential integrity and that's enforced, that's one of the ways that you're implementing union, intersection, and difference operations, right? Once again, the term is referential integrity. Does everybody know what I mean by referential integrity? Yes, no, maybe? That we did the other day. There we go. When I talk about referential integrity, I'm talking about the option to configure the relationship, typically a one-to-many relationship, which is one of the ways to manifest theta join in Access. And if you edit the relationship, you can check the box. When you enforce referential integrity, and then you check these other two boxes, cascade update related fields and cascade delete, it prevents table dependencies from getting ruined. And then the join type, you can specify include rows where the joins field from both tables are equal. Does that sound like anything that's familiar to you?
Sounds like union.
Well, union would be all of the records in both tables, regardless of whether they're equal.
Okay, so common ones would be intersection.
Yeah, common ones would be intersection. That's right. So when you're noodling with referential integrity and you go a step further into join properties, that first default option is include rows where the join fields from both tables are equal. The most important type of, there's 4 types of theta joins or equi-joins. And the values between a primary key and the foreign key, here's the primary key, there's the foreign key. So the turtle species ID here is the same data value and data type, right? You have a species ID number. Here's the lookup table, species ID number. This is the primary key and the foreign key. When those values and data types match, and you're working on theta joins, and you do the job correctly, what you have is a case where let's see, 4 data types. The one that works the magic is the inner join. So in your text, okay, in your textbook, I don't like the description of, I don't care much for the way they describe these things, and that's why we're trying to translate for you with the addendum. You're going to hear references to inner joins, outer joins. There's a right outer join, a left outer join, and then a combination of that outer join, right? The outer joins, so there's 3 other types of joins. They're called outer joins. That's part of the theta join we're talking about. What's important to know about the outer joins is that they preserve some of the rows in a query where they do not have corresponding matches and attributes between tables. Why is that important? The other 3 types of theta joins are important also because sometimes you're trying to combine data sets and you don't want to lose records where there's a data mismatch. So if you're doing the inner join, the key, the primary key and the foreign key and the data types between them, they all have to match. And then what you're doing is you're combining the information from both tables. That's the thing I want you to understand. The most important kind of theta join, the inner join, combines information from multiple tables. And this is what provides access to data that differs between tables. So the whole point of this data normalization is that we're gonna distill things down into the lowest common denominators, and we're only going to store the information once. But then when you have to view all of the information together, how do you work that? I mean, how do you make that practical? And the simple truth is, it's this inner join, which is technically one of the 4 theta join types, right? And when you do an inner join, a one-to-many inner join, it allows you to combine all of the data from this table and this table, provided the values are equal where they're connected, where the relationship exists, where the join is made, okay? Any questions about how to, and you know, if you want to join tables together where the differences between records are preserved and those records are not excluded, then you're dealing with some type of outer join. So the inner join is what allows us to combine related tables in a very elegant manner. And that's really like the, I want to say that's like the heart and brains of most routine SQL structured database environments, right? And once again, when you get into the data mining side of it and you have larger data sets and they're not all cleanly related with theta joins, then you can use the other operators like union, intersection, and difference, right? So I wanted to be sure that I called that out because I want you to understand this last part. and how that first theta join is the one where the magic happens. That's where most of the magic for routine SQL queries and jobs, you know, when you're running SQL statements for large corporate databases or government databases, and you're combining the information from multiple tables, so you can do those kinds of really fancy queries like, okay, yeah, the CSI scenario. Does everybody remember the CSI scenario?
Not exactly. Kind of remember talking about it.
Okay, everybody knows the TV show CSI, right?
Right, yeah.
And they're getting data, right? They're getting data about a case, and then they get on the screen with the computer, the master, the master system with the master database, and they're like, okay, we're looking for a male in his early 30s to late. They have all this forensic information, right? So they go, oh yeah, the male, late 30s to early 50s, okay. And what they're doing is they've got all these tables, and how are they joined together? How is that powerful? Well, all of those data tables are, oh, and he's got red hair, and he's driving a Camaro, and he's driving this state license plate, right? And what you see on the screen is that they distill down each of these criteria, and they boil it down to what? Like one of 3 people in a metro area with 10 million people. Oh, in the greater LA area, there's only one of 3 people this could possibly be, right? How do they do that? That's the power of the equi-join, specifically the inner join, and data normalization and entity relationships and structuring your data. Now, I know there's a big, sexy push everywhere for everybody to work NoSQL, and even your author gets crazy with it. Yeah, I think there's a place for that, and that would be a great topic for Dr. Joanne Luciano to introduce to you in a data science course. But I'm like old school, and I've been doing this 20 years, and I know it throws criminals in jail, and it gets the job done. And so if you have a choice in terms of how you work your experimental data, spend a little time, invest some energy and thought to how to structure your tables and all that. Any questions about the last part of the theta join concepts we needed to review from chapters 3 and 4? Questions?
None from me.
Okay. All right. All right, where to next? I wanted to demonstrate a macro. Does everybody remember this?
Yeah, the velocity thing.
Yeah. Yep. And here's the part that I find really frustrating. In most of your Office 365 applications, if you follow your menu across the top with me, everybody do this together. Let's all do this together. File menu, home menu, insert menu. That's see, the ribbon changes. All the options in the ribbon changes. Everybody's with me, right? The draw menu, the page layout menu, the formulas menu, the data menu. If you're in Excel, you should get right about here where it talks about the review menu. And then a review menu, I'm guessing you don't have a developer menu. How many of you have a developer menu?
I don't.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't either.
See, that's the problem. One of the most powerful features to automate data work, collection, and organization. I don't know why they make this so hard. They don't include the developer menu with its ribbon by default because, well, I'm sort of embarrassed to share this. You know, most of you know that my wheelhouse has to do with cybersecurity, right? I mean,
Yes.
I did all sorts of tech disciplines for 20 years in industry. I was a certified systems engineer and, you know, all that, right? So I did a lot with IT. I also did a lot of coding and programming, right? Worked with computer engineering as a research associate. Research associate for 2 years at USC, all that other kind of stuff. I don't know if I've ever told you about my background. Anyway, here we go. About 20 years ago, everybody got stupid with Microsoft Office with macros, and they developed all sorts of nasty malware. And so developer as a menu is not generally accessible to the average citizen unless you turn it on. You have to go into File, Options. So you go to Options, and then you have to go to, let's see, Advanced. Oh, Customize Ribbon. And there it is. It's usually unchecked. So what I want you to do right now, each of you, if you would please, let's start over again. I'm going to go to File, Options, Customize Ribbon. This is probably unchecked. I want you to check it. Okay? And then say OK. And then I need you to tell me, just everybody sound off, unmute your mic and say, OK, I'm good. I have my developer menu. I have my developer ribbon.
Oh yeah, I have my.
Can you point out where you edited the, where you selected the pick a new thing for the row?
Pick a new thing for the row.
Like to edit the taskbar.
Oh, to edit the taskbar, you go to the File menu.
File menu. Okay.
And then you slide all the way down to Options. And then the general options show, but then you see, and a lot of times when you don't see features, you just got to go digging in here into the Excel options for data, right? So, ooh, data import wizards. Oh, look, there's a wizard to import SQL data. Oh, happy day, right? So what am I saying? There's oh, amazing options to automate stuff, and or to proof your data, or to munge your data, or to, you know, whatever. But advanced is a favorite area, right? So copy and paste, you have to kind of select, it selects the whole cell. You're like, I don't want to select the whole cell. I only want to select where I'm dragging my mouse. All these things, nuisance issues. It's the customized ribbon bar.
Yeah, I've done that. I was going through PowerPoint. Should it go through all the Microsoft?
Well, it should be available. You should have macros in PowerPoint, although they made
Yeah, I mean, it has developer, but I was wondering if now when I open Excel, developer would be on there or not.
no, that's a great question. So thank you for asking that, Mr. Niemeyer. So you have developer options on the ribbon bar for each application, and unless you turn them on, you won't have them. So everybody remembers this, right? The this little layup with the 1/2 MV squared.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to show you how cool this was. If you want to record a macro, what you're doing is you're saying, I'm going to, each of the commands and the stuff I perform will be saved into the macro so that you can play them back again. So I'm going to turn this on, and I have to give the macro a name. And I'm just going to call this auto KE build, because I want to practice self-description. I could just accept macro 1, but then when I do it the next time, I've got macro 1, macro 2, macro 3. I've got all these macros in there because I was noodling around with macros. I don't know what the heck they're all about, right? This is just irritating. This is an important thing. You want to store the macro in this workbook, meaning in this file, which has multiple sheets, right? Or do you want to store it like in a new workbook or in a personal workbook, like a macro workbook? I'm going to say this workbook, right? So I did this, and I said, did I do okay? I don't think I did. Auto KE build, right? I can assign a shortcut key if I want to, which can be nuisance issue because remember you use the control key for your virtual machines, right? You just want to be careful what you do here. So if I said control K, that might mean something. But I'm gonna go ahead and say okay. And now I'm recording. See? And the important thing is that I clicked here before I started recording. Let me say that again. I clicked here before I started recording. Now, why would you do, this is just one thing I want to share with you, okay? If you don't have a starting point that's constant, like cell A1, the next time you go to the next spreadsheet to run it, it's not going to work. Because you could be clicked in a different cell and then you go ahead and play back the thing and it thinks it's an A1 and it goes down here, and that's going to be a problem, okay? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to build out the rest of this like I did in a previous demo, and then I'm going to stop the recording and then I'm going to play it back so you can see what it does, okay? And the first thing I'm going to do is save this. Yes, I'm going to save this. I'm going to save my macro thing. I'm going to do a save as, and I'll call this live demo start. Following features cannot be saved in macro free workbooks VB project. Okay, so what's it saying? It's saying, well, all right, so you can take macros and after you record them and you do a bunch of things on here and then you stop the recording, because it's recorded all of your keystrokes and your actions, you can turn it into Visual Basic and then you can port it out to Visual Studio and you can do some whiz-bang stuff with that. It's just really cool. Anyway, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and start building out. If you remember, I have constant velocity. Its kinetic energy changes via mass and velocity. I want to change that because I don't like the way that works or looks. Kinetic energy changes with mass, right? So I changed that title. That's the thing I did. I'm going to increase the mass here. So I'm going to build out an increase of this rate. I'm going to use this column to multiply the velocity times itself. So these are all anchored, right? So I'm going to say equals this times this, and that's a 25% increase from 5 kilograms. But the problem is that if I do this, it's not going to work right. So that's going to be a problem. See, so I'm talking through this and I'm doing extra steps because I want you to see what happens when I stop the recording for the macro. It's going to be an exact replay of everything I'm doing. So I'm going to put in my $sign here, right? Actually, it's the $sign B9 that I need. So everything I'm doing here is going to be duplicated. And I'm going to hit enter. I still have the same value. Now I'm going to Alt-E, and then that's I to insert and F to fill down. Alt-E-I-D, D to fill down. There we go. So I have that. So even the mistake I just made and the screen pop for the error is going to show up in the macro. My kinetic energy is going to be 1/2 times m v squared. So I have to build that out, equals this, which I want to be an anchored constant, times this, which I don't want to be an anchored constant, times this, which is an anchored constant, times this, which is an anchored constant. What am I saying? Well, this isn't moving, that isn't moving, and that isn't moving. So in this formula, B5 and B13 have to be anchored. So I'm putting this in here. Everybody knows what I'm doing so far, right?
Yeah.
Up the equation here.
I'm gonna, whoops. I'm gonna go ahead and drag this down. I'm gonna use Alt-E-I-D. Now I'm gonna do this. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah. And I'm gonna make a What am I going to do? I'm going to make a chart out of mass and kinetic energy. Yeah. Insert a recommended chart. That's going to be a line chart. Did I have something else here? Oh yeah, that's a little smoother. There we go. And I'm going to say chart title. Come on. Oh, I made a mistake. There we go. Everybody with me so far?
Yeah, we're still here.
Yeah, I'm going to change my rate of increase to 50%. Boom! Okay, let's go to the developer. Let's stop recording. I'm going to save this as demo end. You see what I'm doing here? It's called progress by revision. I'm going to save as, version 1, version 2, version 3. When I make mistakes, I get to jump back to previous versions and save a lot of work, a lot of trouble. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tear this up. Oh, I don't like what I did. I'm just going to delete it all. This is goofy. I think this is what I had to start off with, wasn't it? Yeah, that title was a little different.
Yeah, that's what it looked like in the beginning.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. Okay. So I want to run my macro. Oh, there's auto KE build. Now I can step into it, or I can just run it, or I can, like, yeah, again, change the name and the shortcut key and all that. I'm just going to run it. Already exists in this location. Do you want to replace it? Yes. So I did some file saving. Right? So I can save files. Let's talk about how dangerous and how wonderful that is all at the same moment. I turned on the macro. Then I started making changes and I'm like, oh, I want to save different versions of this. Version 1, version 2, version 3, or KE build start, KE build end, whatever. I have live demo start, live demo end, right? Start already exists. I'm sitting on end. It's going to ask, do you want to replace it? The point I'm trying to make is you can automate almost anything. It's just going to record what you're doing, and that's good and bad. You want to think about it. You don't ever want to use it for bad. Just saying. I'm going to say yes. Runtime error. The item with the specified name wasn't found. Okay, so I did change the name. And it's telling me chart 1. Yeah, so the macro did have a misfire. I probably shouldn't have done quite so many richly varied things. So let's just try it a little simpler, okay? Just a quicker demo. Yeah, okay, we're going to stop the debugger. Oh, yeah, okay, so there's a chart title. So I think it was supposed to click into that, except the position was different. When I did the macro, the chart was here. It wasn't down here, so the mouse click was up here. Does everybody remember that? Hello?
Could you repeat the question? The mouse click where?
When I did the macro recording, I moved the chart here and then I clicked here to change the chart title. But when it misfired, the chart was down here. And it probably tried to click here and couldn't find the chart title. I don't know if you noticed, but the chart was down here instead of up here where it tried to edit the chart title. The error had to do with a misfire related to chart title. And it has to do with position. So when you're using the mouse, why am I telling you this? When you're using macros, another good practice is to do everything with your keyboard and not so much the mouse. Okay? So if you're going to move, resize, do things like that, that gets to be a little buggy. But if you're using your keyboard to move around the spreadsheet, that's a lot less problematic when you're recording a macro. Okay? So we had a misfire, right? Point is, I can do this. I can do this again. And this. I can click here. I can run it again. It's going to ask me if I want to change the file name again, right? Got the same runtime error. I'm going to say end. So the first time I did this and I demonstrated the chart was, I had moved it and then I clicked to do the chart title and there was an error that had to do with chart. That's what's happening right now. So what's the only caveat that you need to understand when you're using macros? Try to use more keystrokes and your arrow keys and not so much your mouse, especially when it comes to positioning things. That's where position is critical. That's why I started with A1. You can create a button and then turn on the macros and then walk through a process and then assign the macro to the button and then have a label that says click here to fill out this form, whatever. And then it steps through a whole series of changes and it'll hide this menu and the user only sees this. So what am I saying? If you want quick database applications and you want user wizards, one of your best ways to do this is to go into File, Options, Customize ribbon, and where's my developer? Ah, that's why. Okay, so yeah, macros are built in the database too. And there are other add-ins. Okay? Everybody see that?